So many times I've been told to fuck off to my own country and, you fucking Paul or something like this. And it really got to me because I knew that my dad is working his ass off for us to be here. Kitchens, man, they're full of character. The first kitchen I've ever worked in, I've got a lot of nostalgia when I speak of it, because it was probably the best team I've ever worked with. They'd piss me off so many times. They'd abuse me. They'd absolutely ride me sometimes. And then I remember the last day of my holiday, my granddad died. The village that we're at is very limited to services and stuff. So granddad died at home, and my mum called the undertaker, and he's arrived with the coffin, just put the coffin on the floor, and I had my suitcase out the door already. I was going to the airport. And he's like, "Are you going to help me?" I was like, "With what?" Like, "You have to put Grandad in the coffin." So I picked up Grandad by the legs, put him in the coffin, and shoot off back to work, because I knew I have to be in that kitchen the very next day. I don't know if they would sack me or not, but in my head, I already had the mentality and the ethics of you show up, you perform, you do your best, dust yourself down, get up and get on with it. I just came back from France, spent the last year in France, in Provence, and now I'm kind of staying a little bit low-key, kind of working on my other projects. I've just kind of reopened my business that kind of went live last year. Obviously, I'm traveling all the time, so I had to kind of lay down a little bit with it, but now we're reopening and we're going strong. So that's pretty much what I've been doing the last couple of months. Years, really.
And so with being a sort of a private chefing and traveling a lot, you find it pretty exhausting?
Nowadays, yes, more exhausting than at the start. At the start, it was really, really exciting. It gave me a lot of freedom in both in the kitchen and in just general life. There was probably less stress than a normal kitchen. You're all by yourself, really. But nowadays, when you're kind of obviously getting older, I'm still in my 20s, 29, but hitting 30 now. It's getting a little bit more exhausting. Obviously, priorities change in life. I'm in a happy relationship, and when you're thinking of the future, you're kind of thinking of pros and cons of your actions. But I'm still enjoying it. Still high performer, and hoping to stay that way.
So let's talk about your history with Poland, because obviously you were born in Poland, and how you ended up in Scotland.
It was really random. Was born in southeast, very close to the kind of Ukrainian border, in a small village called Kosztowa. Really, really, really tiny village. Really humble beginnings. But we kind of emigrated because of my dad. Really, he couldn't find a job back in the early 2000s. It was quite a poor part of the country. So he's first emigrated to Scotland as a worker. He was a bricklayer, as a lot of Polish people back in the day. And then we kind of went and visited him for the summer holidays. And then, the holidays are finished, and my parents were like, "What are we doing? Where are we going with it?" And I just went, "Why don't we just stay here?" Probably little did I know that I don't really speak the lingo, so it was quite a challenge. But that's kind of how we ended up in Scotland, really.
Okay. And what was your early years like growing up in Poland? What were your memories?
It was super happy, super harsh, and very humble. I wouldn't say poverty, but probably kind of maybe touching it a little bit. Again, it was the early 2000s. Poland was just kind of getting off its knees from the whole, communist era and stuff. But it was pretty happy. I was born into a kind of working class farm family. So we obviously had loads of livestock, chickens, pigs, cows, whatever. I've got a big family, huge family as well. So it was always natural that there was loads of family around us, and we'd always go foraging for, mushrooms or wild strawberries and stuff. So that was all very natural from the early age, same as kind of, butchering meat and stuff. And I was really embarrassed, obviously, later on in my life about coming from a village and, how do I mention to a kid that grew up in Scotland that, at the age of 6 or 7, I was already kind of being taught how to butcher a pig. It's quite an unusual skill. So I didn't really talk about it, but obviously later on in my career, that knowledge really kind of, you know, boosted it, because you've got the knowledge.
Yeah.
That is my trade now.
Yeah.
In a way. So it was definitely an experience worth doing. It was happy but tough, I suppose.
And what kind of you talked about mushroom foraging and stuff like that. So what kind of dishes were served back in the day?
Oh, it was. I wouldn't say it's any different to what's served in my family home now, because it's all kind of traditional Polish. But obviously, Polish cuisine is really kind of different to. If you look at the history of the Polish cuisine itself, it's different in every region depending on the kind of influence that they had back in the day. Like, for example, the western part of Poland was more kind of richer in a way, because obviously it was the kind of the German part of when it was occupied, it was a little bit, you know, richer, and the eastern part was mainly based on like root veg and all the kind of a lot of Jewish influences, a lot of Tartarian influences as well.
I heard also a little bit of Italian influence as well. There was a bit of an Italian influence. Was it from a king, one of the kings that was married to an Italian lady or something? She bought some produce over?
Yeah, that's just the general. So the legend is that's the whole of Poland. So it's called Włoszczyzna.
Okay.
So it's or as the French call it, the mirepoix. So it's basically carrots, celery, and parsnips and all this stuff.
Okay.
So that was brought by the Queen in Poland, really.
Okay.
And that's the kind of whole legend about how it appeared in Poland.
Okay.
But if it's true, if it's not, you know, it's not for me to deal with the history, even though I love history.
Yeah. And so when your parents or your mother decided that she was going to move permanently to Scotland, what age was you then? I
think I was 7 or 8, something like this. I remember because I was just after my first communion. It was a big thing for a Polish family. So I must have been around 8 years old, yeah. My brother was 2, so it was quite a big decision. Yeah. And, you know, you can judge it as much as you like, but I think it was probably the ballsiest move not necessarily for us. We didn't really, you know, have a choice. Yeah. But for a couple that was brought up in the kind of eastern part of Europe, was brought up in the communism, to move to a completely different country without knowing any sort of language, without knowing the culture. It was brave, and I mean, all the respect to my parents for that, because that was the biggest kind of factor how it changed our lives. That can really make or break people, right? It can really make or break relationships, pressures and stuff like that. Yeah, of course. I mean, my parents kind of lived long distance for years. I mean, even back when we all lived in Poland, before we moved to Scotland, my dad was always away working in Warsaw, working in Świnoujście on the coast. He was never at home because there was never any jobs there. So even though he was in the country, I didn't really see him. So in a way, I might have been brought up without a father, but at the same time, he was always there, and they were always together, and they're still together now. And many years they lived long distance. So maybe the long distance did them a favour. Who knows? maybe not. Who knows? I'd have to ask them. Yeah. So when did food start to become an interest for you? I think it was always interesting to me. I think because I was brought up without a father, or with my dad being away, probably the most natural thing for my mum was at least teach me some sort of skills. Yeah. And with my mum being a chef, more of a cook, I suppose, because she was a head chef in a staff canteen in the Silesian region in the coal mines, where she met my dad as well. So still quite a big kitchen, obviously a lot different and a lot in the different times, but still she was really into food, and all of the people at that time had to be into food. You know, there wasn't, for example, they never took me to restaurants. The first time I went to a proper restaurant, I was already, you know, an adult, because it was always a thing of, no, we've got food at home, we're not going to go to a restaurant. So in a way, if I've seen something interesting, I don't know, in the television or in some sort of newspapers or whatever, I couldn't simply just go and get a burger. You know, I'd have to make it myself. So I kind of read into it. Obviously, that was before the whole social media boom and social media chefs and stuff. And I remember when my parents bought a microwave in the early 2000s, and it's super, super funny because both me and my cousin Maciek, we chopped up hot dogs and like crumbled bread and like mixed it with cheese and loads of ketchup and just melted it in the microwave. And I remember we called it Chinese food because for some reason it was really like, it looked super exotic, and you know, we didn't have a Chinese restaurant probably in the distance of 200 kilometers or something. Like, so for us, that was exotic. So that was our Chinese food. Yeah. But I was pretty much wrapped up in food. I mean, anything from picking potatoes in September and stuff. So I remember as soon as you went back to school after the summer holidays, you'd probably go in for a week or two, and then your parents would take you out of school for 2 weeks, not because they just wanted you to enjoy more holiday, because there was work to do. So the whole family would gather. Okay, week 1 we're picking all the potatoes off the field, and then week 2 we had a massive apple orchard. So the whole family, and it was a lot of us, were just picking apples, and you're in a way by default just wrapped up in food, because even though you're not a chef, you've got the best, you know, produce there, and just kind of natural, I suppose.
And I think that's something that I see in your style of cooking. With what I see you're doing, you're still doing foraging. You're still going to local markets and stuff to get food. Where I see a lot of chefs sometimes don't care where their produce comes from, right? Yeah. Whereas I think for you, it's very important where your produce is coming from.
Well, I suppose these days it became a bit more of a fashion. Both foraging and locally sourcing, and I'm not, you know, saying it's a bad thing. It's a good thing. It's a great thing. But at the same time, I started only doing this when I started private chefing. Yeah. Because when I was, you know, taught in different kitchens, when I was brought up in different kitchens, there was always, you know, mass produce of, we're ordering 200 kilos of beef, we're ordering 200 kilos of onion, whatever, and you would never see where the product came from, because it had to be fast, it had to be quick, efficient, and you had to follow the costs, right? But when you're becoming this small, tiny business of just one person doing absolutely everything, from, you know, doing my marketing, doing my social media, doing my accounting, doing my ordering, shopping, cooking, cleaning after myself, and, you know, leaving the kitchen tidy, you kind of have to. And in a way, you know, I've worked with a chef once who told me that fresh is best, and that was my first head chef actually, and it kind of resonated. And when I started working for myself, I've really put like a proper care to it, and I thought that's the only way, really.
So let's talk about Scotland. What was that a bit of a culture shock moving there?
It was mad, and it was something different. Like, the culture, again, you know, it's a completely different culture. You're from England, very close to Scotland. That's a bit controversial.
I'm about 40% Scottish, probably. So
there we go. Oh, my dad's Irish. But yeah, it was different. I remember I went to school, and we went to Scotland when it was the first raid of the Poles to the UK. So there was no other Polish kids in school. There was one guy, but he was already there for a while, and he was a bit older than me, so obviously we weren't kind of chatting a lot. So, you know, one day we just decided that I'm going to have to go to school, and there I was, just sitting in the classroom, and nobody speaks my language, and I don't speak their language, and it was a shocker for me that in the UK, you kind of had to. There was no choice. You had to go outside to play during your breaks between lessons. So you couldn't really sit on the corridor and kind of feel sorry for yourself or something. So I remember I was just walking around the whole school, obviously not being able to speak to anyone. And probably the first ever kind of embarrassing moment I got as an 8-year-old kid, not speaking the lingo, was I was looking for a toilet. I didn't know where it was. So I came up to this kid and went like, what did I say? So, and then he's obviously kind of pointed where it was or whatever. But I mean, it's funny now, but I look at it there. It was hard, man. It was hard.
Yeah, I think UK, it can be a very welcoming place if you meet the right people. But at the same time, it's kind of a place where I think for any foreign person to go to learn language and culture really fast, it's a great place because you're thrown into it. You know what I mean? And especially, I don't know, where was you in Scotland? Where was you?
So it was in Alwa, so about a 10-minute drive from Stirling, so quite central, I suppose.
Yeah. And so, you know, we have a huge immigration and mix of kids with different backgrounds and stuff. So, yeah, I can imagine not speaking the language could be a difficult one.
It was very difficult.
And the accent too.
Yeah, the accent. Harder. So, for example, like I did have some sort of English lessons in, I don't know, in nursery as well. But like the primary school I went to Poland, there was 6 of us in the whole village that went to school. The school was massive because it was the kind of the old school that was built. It was the whole thing of celebrating the 1,000 years of Poland, that there was 1,000 school built all around the country. But obviously the times have changed a little bit, and so it was this massive building, but there was no kids in the village. So there was only 6 of us with 3 different years. And we all sat in the same classroom. We only had one teacher. And we kind of learned the basics of English because I think that was the curriculum, because that was when Poland kind of started going into the EU and stuff. So we had to, but at the same time, you knew the basics of hello, how can I help you, all this kind of stuff with the biggest Polish accent ever. But at the same time, the accent, it was quite hard. But I picked it up really quickly. As you say, you kind of have to, and kids are like a sponge. They'll pick it up really quickly. Yeah,
and I think that moves like that as a child, it really hardens you, right? It makes you get tough quick.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I'm not sure if I got tough. I probably got tougher in the kitchen. But you definitely grow up quicker. You kind of have to, right?
But how do you feel being sort of growing up in, say, Scotland and then coming back to Poland? Do you feel like you have an edge? Do you feel different to the regular Pole that you would work in the kitchen with?
Yeah, I mean, there was a time when we kind of moved back to Poland when I was a teenager. Again, even though that Poland was quite familiar, it was my homeland in a way. I had loads of family. You know, we spoke Polish at home. It was a different world again. You know, I've just spent 4 or 5 years in Scotland. Being kind of assimilated into the culture, and I really wanted to, because I remember all the kids, like especially on the playground, because I was brought up in Scotland. I was brought up on a council estate, so you're obviously, you know, you're familiar with the whole term of a council estate, and it's quite rough.
I spent a lot of time on a council estate.
There you go. It's quite rough. So many times I've been told to fuck off to my own country and you fucking Paul or something like this, and it really got to me because I knew that my dad is working his ass off for us to be here.
But most of the kids that tell you fuck off your own country,
their
parents are probably foreign too.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That's another thing.
Yeah.
So in a way, you've been kind of brought up into this culture, and obviously, I remember I wore an England top once to the playground, and obviously being in Scotland, I got stoned straight away, and you know, and all this stuff. But it was also a kind of an ethic in school, because even though I was brought up in this kind of rough, dodgy area, the school I went to, it was a Christian school, which I found it quite interesting. That there was loads of different nationalities. We had Muslims, we had people from India, we had Chinese, people from Africa, all around the world. But it was a Christian school, and I found it quite interesting that at assembly or every Monday we sat down and we sang songs praising Jesus. So the Christian values were kind of put into you at school. And also like the uniforms, everybody was, there was no division between you're from a council estate and your shoes are this, or your sweater is this, and my daddy is, a CEO and I'm rich or whatever. We were all the same. And then suddenly we moved back to Poland. I think it was like 2010, I believe. And it was a different world. I went to but at the time there was a school called Gymnasium, so it was like a middle school. And it was like, it was all the kids from all the villages around combined into one big school. So obviously it was really cocky, really competitive, and it was just basically, whoever's the strongest wins. I remember there was a lot of bullying going on and all this kind of stuff. And the first year for me to assimilate back to being in Poland, it was really hard. Obviously, I spoke the lingo. One thing that I really lost, it was the education, because the educational system in the UK was really low. I don't know about now, but back in the day, it was really, really low. And obviously the kind of education system in Poland is super high, even to this day. So I wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed. The only asset I had was I knew English.
Yeah.
And that was, I was just kind of walking around like, yeah, I speak English, and that's about it. But apart from that, it was super hard, and I kind of wanted to fit in like, with the cool kids and stuff. So obviously, an odd cigarette or two, or and then you kind of smoke more, even though that they were disgusting, and you kind of don't want to. You'd still smoke it. Or I remember we'd ask random people on the street to buy us a beer, so we can share a beer amongst 5 people. But you're drinking a beer, you're a man. They're stupid decisions, but you kind of want to fit in. And that's what I probably call coming back to Poland, was kind of trying to fit in, being brought up in a
like
different culture.
Like peer pressure and this kind of stuff, yeah?
Yeah, for sure.
Well, let's talk about sort of cuisine, moving from, I know you said you was eating a lot of food at home, but did you actually, when you first moved to Scotland, did you get to try a lot of the local food, the traditional stuff?
Yes and no. I mean, I remember I went to the school canteen once, and I told my parents, I think it was like £2 or something that you kind of paid at the till, and then you got to the canteen. And I told my parents that we had like baked beans, fish fingers, and all this kind of stuff. And for me, it was, again, super exotic. I was like, oh, wow, that's tasty. And Mum was like, no, you're not eating this. We're going to give you sour stew in a flask, and you're going to get a ham sandwich with fermented gherkins and something like this, or mackerel paste or whatever. So even though I was kind of assimilating with the kids at school, I still get packed lunches with the Polish food. Yeah. So I remember I used to trade the kids for like a packet of Quavers. Like I've seen kids eating like peas and crisps. I mean, it's iconic in Scotland. But I was like, how could you eat a sandwich of crisps? What are you doing?
Oh yeah, I used to love a crisp sandwich.
Or a chip butty. That's another one.
Yeah, chip butty.
So I remember after every lunch break, there would be designated kids to kind of clear the tables and stuff. And if you were doing this, you'd get to go to the canteen and kind of get a bit of a nibble of like what was left over. So I was always the first volunteer of going, hey, I'll do it, and just to kind of get the glimpse of the food that the Brits were eating, really. But at home, it was mainly, I'd say 99%, it was old school Polish food, really hearty, sauerkraut stews, sausage, loads of noodles and dumplings and stuff. I mean, I love it, but it was, back in the day, I wanted to be, like the other kids.
Yeah. So when you moved back to Poland and you finished your education here, when did you get back to Scotland again?
I think it must have been like 2015, something like this. I finished high school, and I kind of failed my exams. I wasn't allowed to go to cooking school. I got caught smoking cigarettes. I remember my dad just smelled me and he's like, oh, you've been smoking. I was like, no, I've just been given a handshake to a mate of mine. He's like, oh yeah, you've been smoking. I was like, cool, I've been smoking. Yeah, you caught me. So they're like, well, you're not going to go to cooking school. We can't trust you. It's far away. Yada yada yada. So I failed my exams. As I said, I wasn't the sharpest tool. And by the time I kind of passed them again, it was already past the deadline to go to uni, and I didn't really have a pot to piss in. Yeah. So I was kind of playing in a wedding band for a while just to kind of make some money. Yeah. And that was exciting. I mean, I made pretty good money for a 16, 17-year-old kid. Yeah. But you probably heard about Polish weddings. They're crazy. Yeah. So it was just constant alcohol abuse. And for a 16, 17-year-old kid, it was fun to start with, but then it just came become more and more and more and more. And my mum just, turned around to me and said, "What are you doing with your life? You're going to end up, being an alkie. You can't just keep on doing this." Yeah. So I kind of quit playing. I got a job in a little pizza restaurant. I got 5 zlotys an hour, and I was so proud that I finally got a proper job, and I'm gonna buy myself something nice, yada yada yada. And then I realized I was the chef, the waiter, the cleaner, the delivery guy. And I remember once the owner came up to his kid and he was like, "Oh yeah, could you look after my kid as well?" I was like, "Oh, for a $5? What are you on about?" So I just kind of quit. And then my mum was like, "Right, you're clearly doing nothing with your life. Out you go." So she, in a way, she kind of booted me out the house. Yeah. And there I was a couple of days later, kind of living with my dad in Scotland. And yeah, I think that probably was the best decision that my mum ever made for me, really. So yeah.
And do you think that there was more opportunities in Scotland at the time?
Yes and no. Probably better money.
Yeah.
Probably better opportunities in Scotland compared to the region where I was in Poland, for sure.
Yeah.
But it was already a bit of a familiar place. You know, it was a bigger city. It wasn't a village. But yeah, it's still same principle. I have no education. I had no experience in anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I still wanted to be a chef because I've dreamt all my life to be a chef. But I just never really had the chance to either go to school, get the education for it. My mom always told me never be a chef. It's it's a tedious job. You're never going to have Christmas, never going to have Valentine's. You're never going to have weekends.
Partly true.
Partly true, but because you do socialize a lot.
Yeah.
I suppose we're going to get to touch on that subject later. Yeah. But it's a tough job.
Yeah. I think any industry is the same with, like we discussed, right? Chefing, barbering, tattooing. You're working for people, so you're people pleasing. Yeah. So it takes a lot out of you. There's a lot of socializing, a lot of pleasing the customer. You know,
it does, and it chews you inside out, really. And
of course, it does.
Kind of, it's harsh. It's really harsh. But I wasn't aware of that. My first thought was like, oh, Mom, just stop.
Yeah.
Like, I want to be a chef. Full stop.
So, let's talk about Gleneagles, because this is an important step in your life. Where did that come about?
So it was really random. Gleneagles. I heard about it. It was this legendary hotel. Even when I was a kid, kind of still living in Scotland, I heard people kind of working there. I heard it was a big place. Never been there. But I remember I was walking around Alloa, the town I was kind of brought up in, with my CV, which was basically just my name, address, phone number. It was a business card. It wasn't a CV. Yeah. And I was kind of knocking around the restaurants, and people just, you're taking a piss. You've got no experience. What do you want to do? So I got a job on the building site, and I hated it. I hated every moment of it. But I was making good money. Yeah. And I could see my dad was super proud because, hey, I'm going in his footsteps and stuff like this. And I kind of I met up with my kind of childhood friend, and he said, hey, my neighbour's a supervisor at Gleneagles, and like she's a supervisor of the kitchen porters. Maybe like she can put in a word for you, and you can kind of get a job and stuff. So as soon as he said that, I was just like, right. Handed in my notice. I didn't really hand in my notice. I just kind of emailed the manager at work. I was like, I'm not coming into work tomorrow. Yeah. He was super raging at me. Yeah. And then I got an invite for the interview. So I went into the lobby, and it's this amazing swanky hotel, and it's beautiful.
What's the history of Gleneagles if people don't understand?
So it's, I think, probably one of the kind of most legendary hotels in the UK, and one of the most legendary hotels in the world. During the World War, it was turned into a hospital for the veterans and stuff. So it's got an amazing history. It's a beautiful kind of resort with golf courses and loads of kind of events held there and stuff. So it's probably one of the best and the most iconic places to be trained. If there was anyone back in the day that wanted to be successful in their trade in chefing, it was either going to London and work at the Savoy, or for all the other big names down in London. But if you wanted to do it up north, it was Gleneagles. There was kind of no other choice.
Any people you rub shoulders with in the kitchen? Any people that were around at the time that you were working under? Any people?
Any famous people? You mean?
Any people you would know?
I don't think so. There's a couple of them that made it now in life, and now they're super successful, and I wouldn't say they're famous, but they're really successful in the industry. Yeah. A lot of them were probably successful back in the day, and then when they kind of stepped in and kind of settled down as senior roles and exec chefs and stuff, they've probably got a beautiful career. But for them, at this time, it was a stable job probably. But definitely a place to be trained at, really. And I remember I kind of spoke to the hiring manager, Elaine, and so she's seen my CV. Yeah. And 90% of the people on Potwash were Polish. So she's seen my CV. Okay, cool. Another Paul, on you go. And she heard my fake Scottish accent, and then she's like, "You're Polish?" It's like, "Yeah, but like I speak the lingo. I've been brought up in Scotland." She's like, "You want to wash pots for a living?" I was like, "Well, not really, but hey, I've got no education. I want to be a chef." And he's like, "Wait a minute, let's go." So we went down to the Dormy, which was like the kind of restaurant on the golf course. Spoke to the head chef, and he basically said, hey, if you do well on pot wash during the summer, which is the kind of busiest period in the hotel, I'll get you a job in the kitchen. So, you know, there I was, borrowed 280 quid from my dad, bought myself a shitty Vauxhall Corsa to commute to work. Then it broke down. I got fined 500 quid. So I had to pay for that as well. And there I was commuting to work every day and washing pots. And it was definitely an experience. I hated washing pots, and I still do, and I hate it. But at the same time, I knew that was my only way into the kitchen without having the education. Yeah. So I've done my best. I took every single kind of, you know, overtime shift or whatever. I've washed the pots as fast as I can, so I can turn around and watch the chefs and stuff. And yeah, just like the chef promised, in September, he kind of, you know, they gave me a set of whites, and on you go in the kitchen.
So what was your first moments in the kitchen like?
It was scary, man. It was scary. I remember I was still, I think it was my first day ever in the kitchen, and I walked in. I was late as well because I was told to come in for 9 o'clock. So I got my whites from the laundry room, got 2 towels, got trousers, everything kitted out, ready to go. I walk into the kitchen past 9, and the head chef gave me a massive bollocking. Like, what do you think you're doing? I was like, oh, what did I do? Like, I was told to come in for 9, but I was in the hotel at 9 o'clock. I was like, no, you're in at 9 o'clock on your section, ready to go. So after that, never, ever, ever in my career, I was ever late to work. I never called in sick because I knew that straight away you're going to get a bollocking at best. So it was harsh. I mean, I walked into the kitchen and, you know, the chefs were shouting, screaming, running around. And I remember one of them kept yelling, hot, hot, hot. And one of the chefs turned around. He was the breakfast chef, the toughest old school dude I've ever met. And he turns around and he was like, it's a kitchen, everything's fucking hot. I was like, yeah, chef.
So what kind of, like, in a kitchen itself, right, you know, I'm not a chef, but I'm trying to imagine what kind of characters and what kind of people you got in there, because you've got all sorts of walks of life and different people. So what's the level of banter in these kind of places?
In Scotland as well. Yeah. Scotland's notorious for their sense of humour. Kitchens, man, they're full of characters, and especially that kitchen. The first kitchen I've ever worked in, I've got a lot of nostalgia when I speak of it, because it was probably the best team I've ever worked with. They'd piss me off so many times. They'd abuse me. They'd absolutely ride me sometimes. They called me, because in the kitchens you've got titles. You've got commis chef, you've got chef de partie, which is the kind of the chef of the section. You've got sous chef, yada, yada, yada. They called me chef de KP because I was the kitchen porter. And for them, you know, I was like, what are you doing in the kitchen? Why are you working with us? You've got no idea. So it was harsh. Obviously, loads of racial jokes, loads of homophobic jokes, loads of, there is no filter. As soon as you walked into that kitchen, you knew that you're going to get absolutely wasted. And there was no lines. You know, people would give it back. You know, the head chef would shout at you, and then you'd take the piss out of the head chef. You'd probably get it on the neck after, but you'd do it. That's what I kind of loved. I'd really compare it to the army, because you've got this feeling of the brotherhood. I know it's a big word, it's a bit romanticized, but in a way that, you know, we spend every single day together. Again, Christmas, New Year's, Valentine's. I knew more about the guys in the kitchen and their families than I knew about my family. It was great. It was tough, but great. So many, you know, bollockings, abuse. I got to a point where I couldn't take that so much that I kind of started getting treated for depression and stuff. But I still showed up, still performed, because it was the kind of jeopardy that really, you know.
This is the thing, I think, that I've come to learn, maybe also my career in learning to cut men's hair and going to college and then working in shops where I was a junior, sweeping the floor, you know, the piss taking and all of this kind of stuff. It makes you appreciate the level that you get to. It makes you see that it's worth it, the stickability, because I feel like nowadays a lot of this stuff can't fly, and people are easy to give up, Whereas back then, you knew you had to show up. If not, you'd get it more from them.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's tough love kind of thing.
It is. And I mean, it got to a point, as I said, you know, you're sick. What do you mean you're sick? You're coming into work.
Yeah.
If you pull a sickie,
you're not letting us down.
You're going to get absolutely ripped. You've let down the whole team because they had to do your job. They had to run your section. They had more work to do for the same pay.
Exactly.
And being taught that ethic within the first 2 weeks in the kitchen, I already had a kind of holiday lined up to go and visit my family in Poland, and I was so much looking forward to it because it was still lined up from my dishwasher days kind of thing. So they didn't really want to move out. But I could see the chef just looking at me, look at this tosser. He's just, spent 2 weeks in the kitchen and has already gone for holiday. But I was just like, it's a holiday, right? That was my first ever holiday in my life, So I went for it. I went back home, had the time of my life with my mates. I had some parties, went to a festival. And then I remember the last day of my holiday, my granddad died. Mm-hmm. And Jesus. The village that we're at, it's very limited to services and stuff. So I remember my mum, so granddad died at home, and my mum called the undertaker, that's what you call him?
Yeah.
And he's arrived with the coffin, just put the coffin on the floor, and I had my suitcase out the door already, I was going to the airport. And he's like, are you going to help me? I was like, with what? I was like, you have to put granddad in the coffin. He's like, what do you mean? Have you got no helpers? I was like, nah, mate, you have to do it. So I picked up granddad by the legs, put him in the coffin, and shoot off back to work because I knew I have to be in that kitchen the very next day. Yeah. I don't know if they would sack me or not, but in my head, I already had the mentality and the ethics of you show up, you perform, you do your best, dust yourself down, get up and get on with it. And it was harsh, as I say, it gave me a lot of depression and anxiety, but it does shape you up as a human being. It's a school of life, really.
I think we all need to go through a bit of trauma with stuff to have stickability. Yeah. If we don't and we give up at the first hurdle, we'll never stick at anything.
I wouldn't even call it trauma at this point. I would just call it lessons. It's I feel like, and I'm probably going to sound like a right boomer when I say that, but I feel like society today is obviously got a little bit softer and softer and softer as it goes. And I'm not saying that is a bad thing, because it's good to express your feelings. It's okay not to be okay, as cheesy as it sounds, but it's true. But at the same time, going through a certain journey is probably the most exciting thing in your life. Now, I see myself as a fairly successful chef. I'm not going to say I'm the best chef in the world. First of all, I don't believe in the term "you're the best in the world," because there's always going to be someone else that's not been discovered yet, or But you're not going to be the best. But in a way, I feel like I'm quite successful, and I'm not that much proud of who I am now. But I'm proud of the whole journey I went through, because that was the most exciting thing that ever happened in my life.
If your dad never would have gone to Scotland, you would never have been where you are now, right? People that romanticize chefing. For these people, what would you say the reality is that they don't see?
It's the long hours.
Yeah.
Really, really, really long hours. So at Gleneagles, I thought I was working long hours until I started working for myself, and then I'm working long hours. But you're working 100 hours a week. You're never at home. It's really hard to have any sort of relationship. So many times I've tried, going out with a girl, and it never worked out, because at the end of the day, you're always at work. You're on your day off, the head chef will bollock you through WhatsApp saying, why have you not labeled this or this or this? You're constantly at the highest peak of your performance. So it's romanticized a lot in movies. I mean, I think there's a lot of movies now that kind of show the true aspect of it. But at the same time, on social media, it became very trendy to be a chef, which is a beautiful career, but like probably any other industry, there's ups and downs of it. But it's tough. It's just generally a tough job. Very
it's a messy
rewarding.
Job too. You're fucking thinking of food all the time.
Yeah, you're thinking of food.
The last thing you want to do after a fucking 12-hour shift is go out somewhere. You got to go wash. You got to change your clothes, and then by then you're knackered.
Yeah. So I mean, the other thing that's really dangerous in the industry is the drug abuse, is the alcohol abuse, because let's be honest, you're spending 16 hours in the kitchen from, I don't know, 8 o'clock in the morning till 12 o'clock at night. You're coming back and you're hyped. You want to do something. So you go out with your mates, have a couple of pints, and then, you know, some of them would go for the nose beers and kind of do that. One thing that I'm really, really, really proud of is throughout, I'm hitting 11 years now in the industry, I never, ever, ever had to help myself with cocaine in the industry, which is a big problem. Which, again, I'm super proud of, because for me, in my opinion, if you have to help yourself with stimulants like this to perform, just don't be in it.
So how do you think the chefing lifestyle affects people's mental health?
A lot. There's a lot of suicide in chefing, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's the constant pursuit of success. As again, you're always the highest performer of all, because you're not only working physically, you're on your feet all day. You're working, you know, mentally as well. You have to calculate everything. Everything has to be fast. It has to be up to the standard. It has to be quick, and it has to be good.
Yeah.
So, in a way, you're not thinking about anything else but cooking. I catch myself even now that, you know, I'll go back home and the first thing I'll do, I'll munch a sandwich or something, and I'll just scroll and kind of look for inspiration on Instagram and be like, oh, this is nice. And my fiance is like, what are you doing? You're at home, let's chat. I was like, oh no, just wait a minute. I've got an idea for a dish or something.
Yeah.
So in a way, it takes your whole life and it becomes a lifestyle. Yeah. Again, it sounds cheesy, but I think if you devote yourself to chefing and you don't treat it only as a job, if it's your passion, then you're kind of screwed.
How can it be at home sometimes when you've done that many hours of cooking and you've got to go home and cook for yourself?
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't.
No.
Very, very, very rarely I cook for myself. Probably nowadays when I take longer breaks. So when I do private chefing, I kind of work for, 8 months or 10 months straight, and then take a month or two off. But even in them months, I'm just kind of sleeping most of the time. Because
recovering.
You're beaten into a pulp. Yeah. You're basically working at your highest levels, and then you're kind of, you know, you're down, and then suddenly you're becoming ill, and you're becoming.
What's the wear and tear like on your body?
It's bad. I've got really bad posture, as you can see, constantly being like this, chopping. Tennis elbow from, you know, rocking with the knife. Your feet hurt a lot.
Yeah.
There's it's a funny term in the kitchen called the chef's arse, which is basically, I'll let people Google that. I'm not gonna get into detail to it. If you're brave enough, Google chef's arse.
Yeah.
It's hard on your body, man. It's really hard, and
I think being like any physical trades, especially like your dad was a builder, my dad was a builder. I didn't want to go in the building industry because I know what it's working like outside, and so I chose barbering. And with barbering, it's the same. It's still wear and tear your body. You think it's going to be better. You're in the warm, of course, but it's like some days it's like I go to eat lunch and it's 7 p.m. It's lunch. Yeah. You know, it's sometimes you can't understand how to, and it's the same with chefing. You cannot physically know how many people are going to walk from the door and sit down in a big busy restaurant, right? Some days it might be a quiet day, and other days it might be fucking flat out.
And it usually is flat out. If you're in a restaurant, it's definitely flat out most of the time. If the restaurant's kind of busy and big enough.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, I always say that I've eaten some of the best of world's food over a bin. And it's true, because the only way a chef gets to eat 90% of the times is just kind of either leftovers or just kind of tasting. Yeah. And I get to a point where I get to work, I don't have breakfast, I don't have lunch, I don't have dinner. And I'm not really feeling hungry because I'm smelling the food all the time, and I'll taste it. I know it's just a little drop of soup or something, but you're probably just kind of getting in your brain, oh yeah, I've eaten. And then you go back home, it's 12 o'clock, and you have a dirty pizza or a kebab.
I remember when I was apprenticing in a busy barber shop, like 10 barbers and working, I remember eating my lunch on the toilet. You know, pretending for a toilet break and just quickly eating my lunch to come back out.
It's true. And do you know what? I've got it to this day that we're going to sit at the table. Sitting at the table for me is is a bit of a weird experience. I don't know. It's just like you sit down, and very rarely it'll happen to me.
Yeah.
But we'll sit on the table, and I'm always going to be the first one to finish because in my head I need to eat fast because I've got stuff to do.
Yeah.
So it's a habit. It's a bit of a PTSD, I suppose, that you've always got something to do. There's always something at the back of your head that you have to do. You're being rushed. And
I also find that in barbering is that when I have a busy day, I'm one after the other. I'm bouncing through it. But then sometimes when I have that bit more relaxed day and it's less clients, I seem a little bit lost because I feel like I function better at high stress. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. It's the same in restaurants. So I remember in the first kitchen I worked at, we had something called the winter hours. It was on the golf course. So that's when they would kind of cut down our hours and give back the time that we kind of gained over the summer. Usually never happened, but that was always the promise. You still had to be present at work, just doing something else, usually just probably cleaning, or there was always a saying that time to lean, time to clean. So there's always something to do in the kitchen. But it was every time there was nothing to do, people just get a little bit too relaxed, and then when shit hits the fan, you're screwed.
Yeah,
you're lost.
Yeah.
Suddenly, we've got a table of 20 people walk in, and you're screwed. You've got no mise en place because you probably thought, it's a bit of an easier day. I'm not going to do this or that and the other, and you've got no mise en place at all, and you've got nowhere to run. You just have to.
And I can see that's when probably all the stress and the fucking arguments and back and forth goes.
See, because the kitchens, right? I'm not sure how much aware you're of the kind of whole professional kitchen concept. Kitchens are divided into certain sections. There's a fish section, there's a sauce section, there's a meat section, there's a veg section, etc., etc. And there's the pass where the kind of food lands together and kind of gets put into one. But you have to cooperate with all the other guys. Hence, usually all the kind of the shouting, because a piece of fish is going to cook quicker than a well-done steak. Yeah. So you have to time it right.
Yeah.
So if you get an order for a well-done steak and a beautifully poached salmon, and if you're stupid enough to stick the salmon in the pan as soon as the check comes on because you want to have a bit of a lot of chefs are like, oh yeah, I'm just going to go for a smoke when the salmon's cooking or something.
Yeah.
And then they realize 20 minutes later that the salmon is still cooking because the steak is still cooking.
Yeah.
You're going to get a bollocking because one, you've wasted the produce. Two, you've slowed the service down. Three, you're becoming the arsehole in the kitchen because you're not cooperating, you're not communicating. There's this constant fear that at best you're going to get demoted or you're going to get sacked.
Yeah.
Because if you're working in one of the best places, you have to perform. Otherwise, the door's there. There's 10 other guys waiting for your spot. Yeah. So you better perform.
What is wastage like? And I've always been interested. What is wastage like in the kitchen? Like at the end of the day, I've always wondered how people can walk into a restaurant and it's not busy and say, I'm going to have this or that. How much of it is fresh and how much is wasted?
It differs from restaurant to restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a busy hotel restaurant, it's going to be a lot of wastage. There's a certain system, a labeling system that's kind of written into the HACCP regulations of the place. And if it's past the kind of 2 days after preparing, so for example, you get a whole side of salmon and then you kind of prepare it into little pieces of salmon so you can fry them. If it's past the 2 days, you're chucking it out no matter what because that is the system.
Yeah.
In small restaurants, it's different, mainly because they're working on a booking system.
Right.
So if you've got 25 people booked for dinner, you know how much stuff you have to buy, you have to prep. So there's very little waste. And even if there is any waste from the kind of food that you're going to serve to the customers, so you would have served to the customers, it usually gets put into the staff food. So the kind of smaller places deal with it this way. But it's impossible to deal with it in any other way in a big operation because nobody's got time to cook 50 pieces of fish for staff food for the waiters, So it differs, I suppose.
What's the most shocking thing you've seen in a kitchen?
Without
mentioning names, but the most shocking,
dude, there's so many things. I don't think I can say it. I don't think I can say it. I don't know. Working in the kitchen is just shocking, full stop.
Yeah.
It's never anything related to food.
Yeah.
So if anybody thinks that there's anything being done to your food because you're rude to the client or something, it's bollocks. It doesn't happen. Personally, throughout my whole career, I've never ever seen people do anything to food. So I want people to know that.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe there's places that do it, but the places I've worked at never ever done it. But there's constant jokes. Again, a bit like, I don't know, a bit like a old building site, a bit like anywhere. So the kitchens are a confined space with mainly men, mainly young men.
Without much education and probably not much schooling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's going to be fights.
Yeah.
Oh, there was a lot of fights. Maybe that's probably one of the weirdest things. There was a guy that was trying to bite another guy's ear off, pull a little Mike Tyson off him. But yeah, they're just basically, chefs strive on other chefs' failure. Yeah. It's always competitive, no matter what. Yeah. And maybe to a certain extent, I think that's what drove me as well, because I remember there was this guy named Michael Sutherland. He's a couple of months ago, he's actually won the Andrew Fairley Scholarship, which was quite a big thing in Scotland. So congrats, Michael. He was probably the best chef in the restaurant I was cooking in. And I was always admiring his way of kind of laying out his knives, laying out, his section, making sure that he's always prepared, and he was always really professional, and he was always talking about food with so much passion and kind of love to it that, in a way, I was pissed off at him. I was like, why can this guy do it and I can't do it? So I just kept on going. So it's a bit self-perpetuating kind of thing. But yeah, it's very competitive. So again, a room full of men, that's usually super hot. So you get really close together. You smack each other's ass a lot. That's very, very normal. Again, loads of sexual jokes. That's pretty normal in every kitchen. Obviously, I don't know now. I've not been working in a professional kitchen for about 5, maybe 6 years now. But I can't imagine it changed much. Yeah,
it's a messy, uncomfortable job, and I think that with long hours like that, you have to pass it in whatever way it gets passed. And it's the same when you have like a December in a barber shop. It's like you do what you do to get through it. Yeah, that's there's some days you don't talk to the guy next to you because you've had an argument, and then the next day you're making it up to each other.
But you have to perform. That's it. I remember there was the day when, I think it was Mother's Day or something, and for some reason somebody called in sick, so he was obviously a prick to all the rest of us. So he had no future for the next week or two. And we're really, really short-staffed, and it was one of the busiest days apart from Christmas. And I remember I walked in onto the section just after my days off. The guy that was on the section before me left me absolutely nothing. I was deep in the shit, and the service just kept on going from 8 o'clock in the morning all the way till 11 o'clock at night. You probably had like 3 toilet breaks, and you've not left the kitchen. So it's tough, man. It's really tough.
So let's talk an inspiring moment for you in your chefing career. What was you was proud of cooking?
I was really proud of when I managed to get my proper qualification. So it was, again, still at the Gleneagles Hotel. The hotel kind of, I think they paid for like the scholarship kind of thing. And I was able to come up with a dish. I had to come up with multiple dishes to kind of get the course going. But the first time I came up with like a proper good dish, I was really proud of. And just general moments of like eureka moments. I was like, oh shit, I've learned it. Yes, finally, I know how to chop an onion properly, or stuff like this. Like it's the small things in life that you appreciate. But there's many kind of moments throughout my career that when people genuinely appreciate what you're doing, is great, because I don't need people patting me on the back and saying, "Oh, Phil, well done. It was a nice meal, whatever." Yeah. But I think a couple of years ago, I had a client. That's again already in my private chefing days. I had a client get off the table, and he came up to me and he gave me a kiss on the lips. He was like, "That was a bloody good steak, Phil." So that was weird, but man, it was funny. It was super, super, super funny, and yeah, just general people, because probably that's what I'd like to address to everyone out there, that people in the service industry, they are there to serve you, but they're not your servants. And a lot of people forget about this. So if there's any sort of act of kindness that you can do to them to make their day, it doesn't have to be a $2,000 tip. It can be a thank you or a smile or just a general good
show
treatment.
of appreciation.
Yeah, appreciation. It would work. And see, for example, today I was walking here, and in front of a restaurant there was this probably retired lady already. She must have been in her 70s, but she was giving out leaflets to this restaurant. And you can see that she's struggling. It's like -10 outside. She's giving out leaflets, and people are just walking around her, staring at her, and just kind of walking past. I came up to her, like, I don't need that leaflet. I'm probably never going to go into that restaurant. But I took the leaflet, said thank you, and wished her a good day, and smiled. Mate, you should have seen the happiness on her face. It was unreal. People don't care about this. People just go along with their day. But just small acts of kindness.
Yeah, I think a lot of people go into a restaurant as well with hunger in their belly. They haven't eaten a proper meal all day. They go in, they're anxious to get their food, and they treat staff in a sort of a slave way, you know.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing. Is I always wondered that, like, sometimes you have customers that come in, and no matter what you do, they're not going to be happy, because they've came in with an attitude, they've come in with a stressful day, and no matter if the food's not on the table when they want it, it's very hard to please some people, especially in the service industry. And I've even found it with cutting hair sometimes. I have a person who's coming in for a haircut, and I'm not their regular barber, so they already don't trust me, so there's no trust involved, and they're not happy to be in my chair. So what can I do with that?
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
It's very difficult.
And it doesn't really, so like where the people are from doesn't really matter as well. You can be just a random, I don't know, builder that goes to a restaurant and treats people like shit.
Yeah.
And so many of my clients, because you've mentioned if I can mention anyone that I've cooked for, and probably the answer is no, because even if I didn't sign the NDAs, I just want to be respectful to them, because when they hire me, they want a little bit exclusive, a little bit, under the radar. They usually, they deal with paparazzis, medias, and all this kind of stuff on a daily basis. They just want comfort. Yeah. But a lot of the time, they're super wealthy people. Yeah. And a lot of the time, they're probably, you wouldn't think so, but they're way nicer to you than a regular, worker from the local building site that comes in for a cheese pasty. Yeah. Because a lot of them are successful for a reason. Yeah. Whether if it's an actor, whether if it's, a politician, whether if it's a businessman. They went through a certain path that required a lot of, hard work, resilience, a lot of, effort, a lot of risk. So they know how much it takes to be in your place as well. Not all of them, but most of them are genuinely nice people.
So now you're thinking of less travel, less private chefing. Let's talk about your next venture that you're onto now. I'm seeing that you're taking a new path, started a new business. So let's talk about that new business. So
the new business is called Tvorik. Can you pronounce it?
No, my tongue doesn't want to do it.
It's called Tvorik. So probably a couple of years ago, I was scrolling through Instagram and I went through somebody, having this beautiful chopping board, and I looked on the website. I was like, I'm not paying that for a chopping board. And probably people think the same when they look at my chopping boards now, because they're not the cheapest, I suppose. But trust me, they are cheaper than the kind of other ones. But so that's kind of where the idea came from. I've never ever in my life had any sort of money, because I either been brought up humble, and when I actually started making money myself, I would, blow it on booze and all the other stuff. And finally, when I kind of started private chefing, that pays a fairly good wage, I wanted to invest my money wisely in something that would mean something for me, that I'd have knowledge at. again, I don't have any sort of business background.
Yeah.
So it was kind of, it was a bit of a risk. But I drew up a little sketch of a chopping board, and then I drew up a little sketch of like a kind of tool organizer and all this kind of stuff, and chatted to a couple of people, and slowly but steady after work. So I'd finish work at 11, 12 at night, and then I'd sit and sketch stuff and then contact random people and ask how much this would cost and this and that. And it became a fully functioning business of handmade chef utensils. So they were kind of, they're fully designed by me. We're selling them on our website. Now we've got a kind of a restock and a bit of a restructurizing the business. So we sold out the first drop on Tvorik PL, and then we're kind of reworking the brand, adjusting the products on how I want them to be. I want them to be a little improved. So I've been working with all of them for a year now. So I know what's needing change, what's working, what's not. So I don't know when this is going to be up, but probably by the time this is up on social media, Tvorik is going to be live on tvorik.com. And yeah, it's definitely a cool business.
Where are the boards made?
So they're made in the Sand Valley region, where I'm from, southeastern Poland. They're made in this super tiny kind of workshop so I cooperate. So one of the reasons one of the main factors of the business is supporting local businesses. I want local businesses to be seen, to be out there, and to be very honest and maybe eco-friendly as well, because it's all wood and that's kind of where the whole brand is going. But so Piotr is the carpenter. He kind of inherited his workshop from his granddad and learned the trade as well. So he's kind of building them. We're working together on constantly kind of improving it and stuff. But it's all kind of locally sourced and kind of ethically sourced as well. Even like the boxes and the packaging tape and the kind of box filler. I want everything to be as natural as possible and avoid as much plastic. And I'm not saying this because I'm a Greta Thunberg and I want to make the world a better place, because obviously one could make a difference, but let's be honest, by not using a plastic straw, you're not going to make much of a difference. Yeah. But at the same time, I want to make people aware that wood is just a natural thing. Yeah. And obviously, during the whole kind of regulations in the chef industry, there's been a lot of comments about, why are you using wood? It's illegal in the restaurants, yada yada yada. But in a way, one, you don't have to use it in a restaurant. You can just use the board at home. Two, trust me, there's a lot of restaurants that use wood regardless. I think it's like with anything, if you're being responsible with it and if you're being sensible with it and making sure that it's clean and it's properly taken care of, it's going to last you, years. Yeah. So that was the kind of whole concept of Tvorik. It's going well. So far, we're thinking of kind of releasing another product maybe later this year. But we're also kind of trying to focus on restructuring the kind of whole sales system and the IT side of it. I wasn't aware when I started the new business. Again, I was doing it after hours. Yeah. So I'm not an IT specialist. I'm not a marketing specialist. It was based on my ideas, and now we're evolving.
I think if you're going to be in any industry for over 10 years, and you're looking to design something for that product, you're going to know best of how the product needs to be used.
Yeah, of course.
It's the same with a pan, with a knife, whatever. You're the same with me. You're using that tool every day. What's the thing that you need most out of that tool, right? And we're probably experts in knowing that.
Yeah, I'm not going to preach people about how they should work in their kitchens. It's up to them. Yeah. Everybody's got their own life. Do whatever you want. But for me, it was very important. For example, when I've designed the big chopping board, that one, it's higher, it's elevated. Yeah. I think the new one is going to be about 12, 13 centimeters. So you don't have to bend down when you're chopping. And when you're spending 12, 16 hours a day at the chopping board. Yeah. It's got a little drawer that you kind of put all your, your offcuts in,
Yeah.
your onion peels, your potato peels. So you're always working clean.
Yeah.
It's big, so you've got loads of space to kind of space out your produce. Or
what wood are you using?
So we're using oak.
Okay.
So again, it's kind of locally sourced in the kind of area in the southeast. We are thinking of using other wood mainly for the kind of looks of it, like walnut, for example. But so far, we're keeping it very simple, very light. It's a beautiful product as well. All the little kind of pieces stuck together.
And these chopping boards are all handmade, right?
Yeah, so they're all handmade.
Okay.
And I think the other thing about them is they're all end grain, which is quite crucial for people that don't know what end grain chopping board is. It's the kind of alignment of the fibers in the kind of wood. So when you've got like a wooden plank, and the kind of fibers go this way. Yeah. But when you kind of cut them into small pieces and kind of glue them back together and kind of stick them this way, the knife goes through the fibers. So it doesn't damage your knives, but also the wood has a natural kind of healing process. So as soon as your knife goes in and forms this kind of, slash on the board, it's naturally going to close up because that's how wood reacts. Yeah. They do take a lot more effort to clean, obviously. Yeah. You need to clean them, you need to sanitize them. You're not going to chuck it in the dishwasher, which is, again, as society, I think personally that we're becoming more and more lazy in every possible way. And in a way, we're living faster, so I don't blame people, right? Yeah. But if we can stop for a moment and rethink that, hey, maybe if I'm, using a plastic chopping board and I'm eating all this plastic, maybe I can, use that board. And that's where, what the key factors of the whole business were.
And I think now people are starting to understand more about quality. I think we're going back a little bit more to quality. Yeah. People are seeing that why go through 4 chopping boards in a couple of years when I can buy one and if I look after it, it's going to be there for a lifetime, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And of course it's going to be a little bit pricier than plastic.
Of course.
Probably you're going to find cheaper options. But again, my fiance, who's a great help for me, and she's kind of always there to support me. And I think I wouldn't be nowhere near where I am just now with both my chefing and my kind of other business, Forik. Yeah. She's always saying that everybody's making white t-shirts. You're going to have the fruit of the loom ones that are like, I don't know, $250. Yeah. And you're going to have Versace t-shirts, and they're all sell. So, time will tell. I'm not saying I'm going to change the world with it, but at the end of the day, it's just a part of the journey. And if it's going to work, I'm going to be super happy.
But at the end of the day, you're using the chopping board yourself. So the more you grow and the more people see what you're doing, they're going to notice that the quality of the chopping board is used by a professional, right? Which is a very important thing. I think there's a lot of people out there these days that are influencing products that they would never use. And they're saying how great they are, but we know deep down they're not using them, right? So from Poland to Scotland, Gleneagles and this whole journey that you've had, private chefing around the world in wonderful places in south of France and up in the Alps. What kind of advice would you give to any young chefs entering this industry today?
Stay focused on what your dream is. I love the quote from Marco Pierre White, who's a super legendary chef, and probably there's a lot of people that disagree with him. Personally, I think he is the kind of consciousness of the whole chefing industry. Yeah. That if you have a dream, you've got the responsibility to make it true. Yeah. And if you like chefing, if you want to be a chef, do it. Yeah. What's the worst that can happen? You're just not going to do it. But just try it. It doesn't have to be chefing. It can be any sort of industry, anything that you're into. Just keep on trying, keep on pushing, work hard. Because again, with the social media going the way they're going, more and more young people they all want to be influencers. They all want to be YouTubers, but very few make it. Yeah. Work hard. If you want to be a YouTuber, but work your ass off. Yeah. If you tell me that success is kind of, born in a day or two, bullshit. Yeah. you work, you work, you work, you work. You show up, no matter if you're sick, if you're tired, if you're hungry, just work.
Yeah.
And then, you know, the success will probably come, the money will eventually come. I can fully say that I've started making satisfying money out of chefing probably the last 3 years.
And how long have you been, would you say, chefing for?
11.
So I always say to people, 10 years will give you a mastery in anything if you work hard enough.
Yeah.
And that's when you should be able to then say what price you want. Whereas before, when you're starting a job, that's what you're getting. Yeah. But after 10 years, no, I want to be paid this much.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, again, I got Pierre White quote that when you go to an interview, probably it's a different world that he lived in for sure. But he always said that when you go to a job interview, never ask 2 questions. How many hours and how much? Just work your ass off. Yeah. And in a way, I'm very old-fashioned. It was a lot of UVU students that I had the pleasure to work with in the south of France, in Le Massé-Poirier. And they always took the piss out of me that I was the granddad of the kitchen, even though that, you know, they were a couple of years younger than me because they were still in uni. But in many ways in the kitchen and in kind of management, I'm very old-fashioned. But I also see the problems of the new generation because I believe that with the way kitchens have been managed in my kind of days when I started, I don't think it's sustainable anymore. I think the world has moved on, but you still have to stay close to the flame. So in a way, you should kind of respect the old, but look into the future and make the best of both worlds.
I like to ask most of our interviews with this, and I would like to ask it with you. If you could speak to your younger self the first time in the kitchen, what would you tell them now? What would you tell yourself now?
Oh. Save your money. Yeah. Don't be going out and spending it on booze. Yeah. I mean, first of all, I don't regret anything in my life. Yeah. All the good times and the bad times, I think it was all there for a reason. But don't be going out and boozing and thinking that you can have friends through buying them drinks. My dad always said that you spend time with shite, you become shite. Yeah. And I think that in a way that's very true because I know money's not everything in the world, but it can get you out of deepest shit sometimes. That's true. And if I had the money that I've spent on a lot of naughty stuff in my early days, I'd probably be in a different place. I'd probably still be chefing, but my business would be bouncing. Yeah. I'd probably have a house already. I wouldn't be searching my place in the world because even though I'm traveling constantly, I can consciously say that I don't have a home. I don't mean a house, I mean a home. In Poland, I'm in Poland. In France, I'm in France. But I don't have a place where I can call home. Yeah. Mainly because of the bad decisions that were made in the future. Yeah. And we live in the world that, you know, the bad decisions usually come down to money. Yeah.
I think sometimes you shouldn't be so harsh on yourself, though, and I think that this is life. Life is all about making mistakes, about experiences, and we never know where it's going to take us next. And I think, especially with your chefing, it can be a phone call one day, and it can be something completely different, right?
It usually is. Trust me, the amount of stuff that I've seen in the last years is something like, you know, you're living in a different world. My fiance's mum calls me Forrest Gump because, and I've never, believe it or not, I've never ever seen Forrest Gump until a couple of years ago. Yeah. And you know, we'd kind of sit down at Christmas or something, and I'd tell them kind of, you know, the background, because there's many more stories. We probably touched up on like 1/10 of what happened in the kitchen. But I'd tell them all the stories about, you know, the kind of places I was at and people I worked with. And she's like, how many lives have you had? It's like, how many things have you experienced? But it's so true because like we probably, you know, like we chatted before today, I want to live my life to the fullest. Yeah. I want to sit on my deathbed and think, fuck, it was good.
Yeah.
It was great. And I don't regret every single thing.
Yeah.
And it's just a great journey. And I think there's, even though that now I'm kind of looking into more settling down. I'm not saying I'm not going to be private chefing, because I've got kind of returning clients that I will cook for.
And most people that don't understand private chefing, we're talking about private chefing on boats, in beautiful houses up in the mountains. We're talking about sometimes being flown in by helicopter. These are things that when we talk about private chefing, people don't understand where a chef can go.
Yeah, I mean, there's I've been cooking in so many weird places. I've been cooking in abandoned houses. I've been cooking at the back of stages at music festivals. I've been cooking in the forest. I've been cooking in the sea, like standing up to here in water. So many places. Like, you wouldn't even think that you can put a table and a chopping board there.
Yeah.
But it's exciting. It's great, because that's another part of the story that you're adding to your life, and it's great. But yeah, private chefing is it's definitely a career worth pursuing if you want to get into it. Yeah. Really hard to get into it. I had the chance to do so purely because I fell out with one of the sous chefs I was working with. He really pissed me off one night. And one of the guys that was an agency chef. So the agency chefs would be like relief chefs. So if you're somebody called in sick, he'd come in. He was a private chef, and he was like, "Hey, I've got mates in France that kind of could get you a private chef gig." And I've had no experience. Trust me, zero. I thought I was the next Gordon Ramsay, but I had zero knowledge in terms of pastry. I never ever wanted to do any sort of pastry and desserts and stuff. I was never interested in it. But I remember I sent my CV, I got a reply, mid-service, a call from France. I was like, shit, one, I don't speak the language. Two, middle of service, they're going to bollock me if I go. But hey, I went to the toilet, picked up the phone. They turned out to be English. And they were like, hey, we want to offer you a head chef job in France. I was like, oh, wow. Head chef at 22. Look at me, guys. I'm head chef. And then I've arrived, and then I realised I'm the only chef. So that was a shocker. And trust me, the dishes that I've put up on the table back then, I'd sack myself on the spot. Yeah. I would just throw myself out the kitchen straight away. But one of the head chefs that I worked with, Tim, he said, "Fake it till you make it."
It's true. It's the same with barbering. I did many haircuts that I look at now and think, fucking hell.
It's true. And again, it's part of a journey. And if it wasn't for this beautiful couple that gave me a chance to work in the Alps, I wouldn't be private chefing. And it wasn't great money. I gave up working in a very good place called the Five Farms up in the Highlands, to work for €900 a month, but it was in the Alps. And when I said I was working long hours at Gleneagles, and never did I know that I'm going to be working long hours in my life, because being a private chef, you're alone. Yeah. And never I thought that I'm going to miss somebody shouting at me. Yeah. That one thing I couldn't get used to for probably 2 years. Yeah. Because if I plated up a beautiful plate of food that was about to send to a client in the restaurant, to a customer in the restaurant, I would have the head chef overlooking my shoulder, smack me in the back of the head, "What's this shit? Get out." But here I would question myself all the time. Is it good enough? Yeah. Is it up to the standard? Is it going to get to the bosses? Are they going to see pictures, or is somebody going to say it's shit? Or you're second guessing yourself all the time, but at the same time you're learning. I was learning desserts and pastry at altitude. So the first cake I've baked in the Alps, I've opened the oven and it just went because of the altitude. Water evaporates quicker, there's different pressure. So you have to adapt. I've learned many of my pastry skills off YouTube. Yeah, I remember when I lived in America with my uncle,
we were stoned one night and he really fancied Cornish pasty, and he's really good with pastries and stuff. So we made Cornish pasties, and yeah, high altitude, it didn't work. It didn't work the first time. It took a few attempts and we got it.
Yeah, you have to stabilize stuff. Like for example, sponge cake would stabilize with yogurt and add more water because it naturally evaporate quicker at altitude and stuff. Yeah. But you learn, and you learn quick, because if you don't, you're out.
You're out, exactly.
So, you know, it's the nature of the beast.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing this craft with us, mate. For me, it's something that I've always been very much interested in, and it's a beast. It's a beast of a job, and it takes a real tough bastard to be able to do it. So, thanks a lot, Filip, for coming in. Thanks a lot, mate.